this Parliament has declined 3 times to pass a withdrawal act with which the opposition, in relation to the withdrawal act, had absolutely no objection. It was then we now have a wide number of this House setting its face against leaving at all. And when this government draws the only logical inference from that position, which is that it must leave, therefore, without any deal at all, it still sets its face, denying the electorate the chance of having its say in how this matter should be resolved. This Parliament is a dead Parliament. It should no longer sit. It has no moral right to sit on these green benches, and whatever
the House must come to order. We've got a lot of business to transact. There is a further urgent question. There are no fewer, I say, for the benefit of those observing, 5 ministerial statements. The attorney must be heard, and so, I hope, will lots of other people. The attorney.
They don't like to hear it, Mr. Speaker. They don't like the truth. Twice they have been asked to let the electorate decide upon whether they should continue to sit in their seats while they block 17.4 million people's votes. This Parliament is a disgrace. Given the opportunity, since I am asked, let me tell them the truth. They could vote no confidence at any time, but they're too cowardly. They could agree to a motion to allow this House to dissolve, but they're too cowardly to give it a go. This Parliament should have the courage to face the electorate. But it won't. It won't, because so many of them are really all about preventing us leaving the European Union at all. But the time is coming. The time is coming, Mr. Speaker, when even these turkeys won't be able to prevent Christmas.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think the Attorney General will find that the moral right I have to sit in this House is due to an election called by the Honourable Lady for Maidenhead, which she lost 40 seats in. And I will represent my constituents as long as I sit in this House, and I'm here elected by the people to do so. Could he tell this House how much taxpayers' money has he spent in closing down our voice?
All I'm suggesting to the honourable gentleman is that he gives his constituents the chance of electing him again.
Order! I say to the honourable gentleman, the member for Kingston upon Hull East, that as a result of my prodigious efforts last week, audiences in New York, Boston and Zurich are now aware of the honourable gentleman as the noisiest member of the House. I always enjoy listening to the honourable gentleman, but preferably when he's on his feet rather than in his seat. The Attorney General.
If the honourable gentleman is so confident that his electorate will consider that his moral right to sit here is so strong, why doesn't he submit it to them now? All we need, I offer this to the front bench of the Labour Party, all we need is a one-line bill that we could put through with the Speaker's help, fixing the date of the general election by a simple majority, and we could have the election. Why doesn't he tell his front bench to put his confidence in his constituents to the test?
Mr. Ian Duncan Smith.
Mr. Speaker, I wonder if my right honourable learned friend, having read the full summary of the judgment made yesterday by the Supreme Court, was also struck by something that seemed to be missing within their methodology. That when they stood up, they said, for the right of Parliament to hold any executive to account, at no point in there did they reference one of the ways, of course, of avoiding prorogation or dismissing it would have been to have had a vote of confidence in the government or to have voted for a general election. Does he not agree with me that that would have been the surefire way of the opposition parties to have secured an end to any prorogation and an immediate change of government if so wished, but they were frightened?
Yes, I entirely agree with my right honourable friend. In our constitution, when a government can no longer govern because the Parliament has withdrawn its assent, the moral and constitutional thing to do is have the courage of your convictions, which this spineless gang on the front bench here do not, to place a motion of no confidence before the House. But they haven't got the guts to put that motion of no confidence because most of them don't want their own leader in power.
Carol Monaghan.
Mr. Speaker, now, maybe say first of all to the Attorney General that none of us on these benches are worried about a general election. The right honourable member for Surrey Heath has suggested that the unanimous verdict of the Supreme Court was the equivalent of the view of just a few academics, and the Leader of the House has described the verdict as a constitutional coup. Now, unfortunately, these views do gain traction amongst members of the public. So will the Attorney General take this opportunity to give a strong statement of support both for the judgment of the Supreme Court and for the importance of the independence of the judiciary?
Attorney.
I think, in answer to the last point, if I may, of the Honourable Lady, I completely, firmly support the independence of our judiciary. In Scotland, in England, in Wales and in Northern Ireland, we have one of the finest judiciaries in the world. And the fact of the matter is the Supreme Court gave its judgment and its judgment must be respected. But that does not prevent robust criticism of the terms of that judgment, which will, I have no doubt, be subjected to that criticism. That is onside. What is not onside is the imputation of improper or inappropriate motives.
Sir Desmond Swain.
My right honourable friend, the member for Chingford, is right, Mr. Speaker. We had notice of the intention to prorogue. With your assistance, we could have entertained motions against it or even a motion of no confidence. So it was a coup, wasn't it?
Well, I know that my right honourable friend will know that I want to be, if I can, and when it comes to the judges, though not to this shower, but when it comes to the judges, I want to be respectful and careful. And it is important that we should understand that these judges are protectors of all our freedoms and all our rights.
Order! I don't normally offer stylistic advice to the Attorney General, but his tendency to perambulate while orating is disagreeable to the House. He should face the House with confidence and assurance and an acknowledgement that the House wishes to hear his every utterance. The Attorney General.
I wonder if you, Mr. Speaker, in a well-earned retirement, would like to give lessons to frontbenchers. It could be our beginnings of a new and very glorious, or even more glorious, career. I've now lost my thread entirely. They say they want me to sit down, so I'm going to. We'll gratify the opposition.
Mr. Barry Sherman.
Mr. Speaker, I came into the chamber today thinking I felt sorry for the Attorney General. But as he started, I did. Fair enough. But every word he has uttered, no shame today, no shame at all. The fact that this government cynically manipulated the prorogation to shut down this House so that it couldn't work as a democratic assembly. He knows that that is the truth. Yeah. And to come here with these barristers' bluster to obfuscate the truth, and for a man like him, a party like this, and a leader like this Prime Minister, to talk about morals and morality is a disgrace!
I'm not sure I could discern in that marshmallow of the rhetoric any actual question. But insofar there was a question, there's an answer. If the honourable gentleman thinks that the government should no longer be governing, tell his leader to bring a motion of no confidence this afternoon. Tell his leader to agree to a simple one-line statute that fixes the election by a simple majority, and we would be delighted to meet him wherever he chooses in front of the electorate. Who will judge whether the machinations which he supports and the devices he resorts to in order to make sure this dead Parliament continues are right or wrong?